Hi, welcome to Roboflow training movie. Imagine that you have a catalog and every new record that gets cataloged needs to get some initial values. You could use formula fields or default values, etc. in Cumulus, but imagine that the default value or the initial value needs to be something calculated. Well, let's say as an example, I want to create or I want to set a UUID to a certain field. Well, in that case, we can create a new workflow. I just created a new workflow from scratch, a hot collection template workflow. And to be able to test it, I'm going to run it to -2. But in the future, of course, we will set it maybe to a 5-minute interval or a 1-minute interval, whatever you want to run it or how quickly you want to perform this. Since we want to work with a trigger folder, since we want to be triggered by the process, we are going to set up a trigger folder. So I'm going to say select, and I'm going to select here in this one, I'm going to say trigger, and maybe, I already had that, so I can do here triggers, and I can say, I can create a new folder. And my new folder is new records. So just like that, select and OK. Then I am going to set a field and a field value, and I can do this hard-coded in the script, but you know I hate hard-coded stuff in the script, so I'm going to say field name. And I have to do new, of course, and not edit. Here I'm going to set field name. And here I'm going to set field value. And since I have it already, oh my god. Let's say I'm going to use the notes field, and I'm going to say, you can pick any field, of course. You can put several fields. I'll show that as well so that you understand. So I can say I want to use the UUID. I already copied it, so I didn't have to type it. And imagine I want 2 fields in which I want to set this. I'm going to add a second here like this. And now I am setting 2 values, and all I need to do is, oh my god, I'm really messing this up. I'm sorry. So we just do cancel. But I'm going to I'm just going to take this so I don't have to redo this guy. Cancel, cancel, and I open it again. Where is it? Here. And now I'm going to select my catalog again. Oh, there it is, BU product. And I'm going to use this folder, so I already have it. And I'm going to create a new field called field name. Okay, and the field name is notes. And I said I was going to do 2 fields, so I'm separating them. And I'm saying I also do the field keywords. Just 2 examples. You can put any number of fields and you can put any number of values. I'm going to say field value. Value. And then I'm going to say here I want $Java -UUID and then Control-C, Control-V, and I'm going to make a tabulation and put it again. Okay, that's cool. Then the next thing I want to do is I am going to add my action here. I'm going to say I want to set a field value. So I'm going to my Cumulus record and I'm going to set field text value. It's going to ask me which record, the hot current record, and then I'm going to use the placeholder tag. It doesn't know about the name of that variable because I just created it, so I'm using field name and I'm setting here as well field value. it's going to pick that up, and since we separated the names and the values by tab limited text, it's going to do exactly like that. So I now have to go to my Cumulus client, and in the Cumulus client I have to set that same path. So I have to define a trigger for this catalog, and it's going to be a record event next, and it's going to be an item added, and when an item is added, it needs to call the Roboflow event. Just one thing you have to keep in mind, that is, this trigger is executed by the Cumulus server. So if the Cumulus server and Roboflow are not on the same server, they will have to write to some kind of network location. That means that both services need to have access to that network location, which means that the Windows users that run that service need to be granted access to a shared folder somewhere, either on the one computer shared to the other, or vice versa, or just somewhere on the network. So I defined the trigger for a new item. So as soon as I catalog any file in here, that trigger will be fired. And let me put the folder open. So if I just catalog from anywhere, anyhow, it can be uploaded from the cloud or whatever. If I just pick a file, I guess I will have a file here somewhere that I can process, maybe a screenshot or whatever. Just take this. Okay, open. And there it goes. It catalogs the file. And as a result, if we look in the folder, we now have a trigger. And so if we run our workflow, before we run the workflow, let me show you that in the notes field is empty and the keywords field is empty. And if I run now this workflow, okay, and so let's say okay. And I just give the example of 2 calculated fields. You can put in whatever you want to calculate, whatever Roboflow can calculate for you. So if I start this, cannot be started on demand, and that's because the interval is set to null. So I first have to set it to -2 if I want to start it on demand, and then here start. Show log. What happened is it found that one record. It came by a trigger, so you can find that in the log, that it find this record by trigger. And if we now go and have a look in the field, we can see that it has created a Java UUID. If you're saying, okay, but I don't want these dashes in here, then you can just remove them. So you can just go to Roboflow and you can just either inline script or add an action, a parameter in front of it. So if you want, you can do it here immediately. And so you can just simply say that we are going to replace in this piece of text, semicolon, we want the minus, semicolon replaced by nothing. And I do replace. I'm putting these hash, the @ signs surrounding it, because that tells Roboflow that it first needs to execute this, and when this is executed, it will execute this. So let's do this. Control C, do this twice. Why am I using $signs here? $signs around surrounding inline scripting tells Roboflow that it doesn't need to execute it here in the parameter file, because the parameter file is also an action script, is also a script it executes. So if you put the instructions with a starting with a normal hash sign, like you see here, hash param folder hash, well, this is evaluated when it reads this script. While when it reads this script, it translates this $sign into hash sign. So the next time it reads it, which is when it's picked up from memory here, then at this point it is going to execute those instructions. So that's why we have the $sign here. So let's do this again. So I catalog a new file. And whatever. Okay. Yep. Pick up this one, and now if we look here, at this point there's nothing, so then I need to start this workflow. Of course, in reality you're going to run this workflow on a time interval. As I said, maybe you're putting it to check every minute, then you can run this workflow on a 60-second interval, for instance. And so here you see we find a record. And if we go and have a look at the value, you can find now exactly the same thing as before, but no dashes. And so it has removed the dashes. Okay, so that's all. Thank you for joining this training movie. I hope this was useful, and I see you in the next training movie. Bye.